Today on Law Made Easy, traffic violations. Different penalty fines depending where you live. With Attorney George Bassias. Welcome to Friends of the Court, Law Made Easy. I'm Ian Carpenter, and I'm here with my co-host, George Bassias. George, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me again. It's great to be here.
Yeah, tell us a bit about yourself before we get started.
Well, I'm an attorney. I've been practicing for about 30 years. My practice focuses mostly on personal injury, bankruptcy, and workers' compensation. But in the 30 years of my practice, I've done just about anything that you can do. I've just chosen to specialize in those three areas.
Yeah. Well, today you're going to talk about something very practical that involves parking tickets in New York.
Well, not parking tickets, traffic violations like speeding tickets, cell phone tickets, stop sign tickets, where you actually get pulled over by a police officer, get a ticket, and face point violations and also fine violations. Parking tickets are a whole different category. They're not against the individual. You can't get any points. It's just against the car.
Yeah. So why can't we get a break in New York? The drivers do get a lot of tickets, don't they, around here?
They sure do. And now with these cameras, it's ridiculous. But I have to say that New York City is a lot better than Long Island, because if you get a red light camera ticket or a speeding camera ticket, it's about $50, which is a bargain compared to Nassau County and Suffolk County, where it's about $160. So in truth, in Nassau and Suffolk, you're better off getting, in my opinion, you're better off getting pulled over by a police officer, because at least then you can plea bargain your case, reduce it, and sometimes even get it dismissed. Whereas these red light cameras and these speeding cameras, they're almost impossible to beat.
So this is definitely going to be of interest primarily for people in New York State. We have areas like Nassau County. You have to be from New York to know about these districts. Nassau County and Suffolk County and Manhattan proper, New York City. So tell me a little bit, or tell us as much as you can, about the different types of traffic violations in these areas.
Okay, so most people get pulled over. Now you see a lot of people getting pulled over for cell phone uses, or for speeding, or for passing stop signs. It's a lot different if you get a ticket in Nassau and Suffolk County rather than in any of the boroughs of New York City. And the big difference is that in Nassau and Suffolk, you have the opportunity to plea bargain your case. The case is, once you plead not guilty, the case is put on for a conference. And if you have a clean record, there's a 90% or better chance that the prosecutor will offer you a plea bargain, something without points on your license. So you pay a fine and you don't get points on your license. Whereas in New York City, there's no plea bargaining system. You go straight to trial. And, for a person that gets a ticket, you're a lot better off being in Long Island or anywhere in New York State other than New York City.
So what steps should somebody do when they get, so there's two types of tickets, one with one of these cameras where you don't know for a few days until it comes in the mail. But if you're pulled over by a police officer and you get and you get a traffic violation, is there anything you can do at that moment when you're getting the violation from the officer?
Well, the main thing is you want to tell the police officer, if you think you're in the right, you want to tell him what happened and try to make sure he writes it down in his notes, because those notes will be presented to the prosecutor, or if you have a trial in New York City, the police officer will repeat what you said in his notes. He should. He may not necessarily, but he should. But if I could give one piece of advice to anybody that gets a traffic violation ticket, I would say never, never, never plead guilty. Always plead not guilty. And on the ticket, it has a selection. Would you like a supporting deposition? Always say yes. They've gotten more advanced today with supporting depositions because everything's electronic, and when the police officer gives you the ticket, he automatically gives you the supporting deposition most of the time. But the general rule of law is once you plead not guilty, mail in your ticket, the police officer has 30 days to mail you a supporting deposition. If you don't get the supporting deposition within 30 days, you can move to have the ticket dismissed, which I've successfully done several times. And a lot of the prosecutors don't understand that the general law is if there's no supporting deposition given within 30 days, that means the information, which is the ticket's called the information, it's defective. So it has to be dismissed. A lot of times the courts don't understand that, so you have to do it by motion. But there is case law, upper case law, that says the ticket must be dismissed. It's not as effective today as it was 10 years ago. 10 years ago, they were not regularly giving supporting depositions. Now, like I said, because of electronics and everything, the moment they give the ticket, they give the supporting deposition most of the time. However, going back to what I said, always plead not guilty.
George, you got to tell some people, though, who won't know what a deposition is and won't know what a supporting deposition is and how that actually can be connected to a traffic violation. So let's just go back there. So you got your traffic violation from Mr. Ossifer, but then what happens?
Okay.
What's this bit about the deposition and supporting deposition?
Okay, so supporting deposition we're talking about, not a deposition. So supporting deposition is more specificity as to the traffic violation. The traffic violation on its face does not really have a lot of information. It has basic information on it. And you're entitled to know details about what the police officer saw and what happened at the scene. That's called a supporting deposition. And it has to be under oath, under the penalty of perjury. It's basically notarized by a clerk of the court or somebody in authority. It's a sworn deposition in a sense.
And the person who gets the violation has an option to provide it if they want their own additional information about what happened, the event?
No, the person that has the violation has the option of requesting it from the police officer. When they plead not guilty, on the pleading on the ticket, it says, would you like a supporting deposition? Mm-hmm. So you have the option of requesting that. And from the time that they receive your request, that's why if you're going to plead not guilty, you should mail it, certified mail, return receipt requested. So, but from the time they receive it, they have 30 days to give you the supporting deposition. If you don't get it within 30 days, that's grounds to have the ticket dismissed, no matter what the charge is.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah.
Very interesting. And so where do you get that option to plead guilty or not guilty? Is that at the moment where an officer writes you the ticket, or is that a few days later when another part of the ticket comes in the mail?
It's right on the ticket.
Okay.
It says it right on the ticket. Would you like to plead guilty, or would you like to plead not guilty and mail this in? Would you like, and if you plead not guilty, would you like a supporting deposition?
Okay.
Very important to ask for that. You'll probably get it nowadays, like I said, because of the way they're set up electronically, you'll probably get it. However, I would request it anyways, because if you don't get it, that is grounds to get your ticket dismissed.
Right.
So I'd like to talk a little bit about cell phone violations.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize that most police officers, when they pull you over, there's two types of tickets. Two types of violations in the code, in the New York State Code. Mm-hmm. One is for using a cell phone improperly. For example, you're holding it in your hands or you're holding it too close to your ear. You're not supposed to do it. You're supposed to be hands-free. Either you're supposed to have an earpiece on, and only one ear, believe it or not. There's a violation for having an earpiece on with ends on both ears. One ear has to be free.
You got that, people?
Yeah.
That's why you watch Law Made Easy with George Bassias here.
Or you got to have Bluetooth. If you don't have that, you're not supposed to be using your phone. So, but what most police officers do is they give you a ticket, not for improper use of a cell phone, they give you a ticket for using an electronic device, which is much broader. For example, if you're holding a GPS in your hand, or a radio in your hand, or any type of electronic device, that's a broader way to give a ticket. It's you know, because what happens is if he gives you a ticket for a cell phone and it turned out it wasn't a cell phone, you could say, oh, I wasn't using my cell phone, I was using my GPS. That's a possible defense. So what they do is they give you a ticket for using an electronic device.
Right.
Now, here's a good way to beat these. So if you're using the cell phone, okay, in New York, in Nassau County and Suffolk County, if you have a clean record, the prosecutor will offer you a deal without points. So that's how you beat it. Also, many parts of upstate
Wait, how do you be the prosecutor may what?
will plea bargain it if you
Oh,
have a
plea
clean
bargain
record. They'll
with
give
you?
you some, they'll offer you something with no points. And if you're getting the no points, okay, you're gonna pay a little bit of a fine, $100 plus a surcharge, but it's worth it. Even if you pay $300, it's worth it not to get points on your license. That's the important thing, because once you get points, it's harder for you to get insurance. Your insurance goes up. It's not a good thing. In New York City, unfortunately, you're gonna go right to trial. So what happens at trial is the police officer first speaks, and he will read from his notes. The judge swears him in and he reads from his notes. So after he speaks, it's your turn to cross-examine the police officer. Now that's something, usually you won't be very good at it unless if you're an experienced lawyer. But the first thing you want to tell a police officer during this hearing is, officer, what you just read to the judge from your ticket, is that all the information you have on this? So is it fair to say that you have no independent recollection other than what you just stated? That's a very key question. And if he says yes, and he will say yes, no other independent recollection. Okay, so officer, when you saw me holding a phone? Yes. How long was I holding the phone for? I don't know. Or if he says 5 seconds, but you just said you have no independent recollection and there's nothing in your notes about 5 seconds. Isn't it a fact that I only held it for 1 second? I don't know. What you want to create is a record that the telephone rang, you picked up the phone, you put it on speaker, and you put the phone down. At no point in time,
Jerry said.
oh my gosh, at no point in time did you ever speak on the phone while you were holding it. This is a defense to a cell phone violation. Why? Because the vehicle and traffic law makes an exception to activating and deactivating a call. You can actually pick up a phone, turn it on, as long as you're not speaking on it. So you might have to produce your your cell phone records so that you show that at that moment you were on a phone call and at that moment there were no text messages. And based on your testimony, you only activated the call and you never spoke on it. That is a defense. I've gotten at least 5 cell phone violations dismissed based on that kind of testimony. So.
It reminds me of tennis, where the really good players go that extra effort
Yeah.
to get the ball and don't
Right.
be lazy, and
Right.
and don't pay for things that you don't have to pay for, and don't get a record that you don't have to have with a proper defense.
I've had a couple of clients that have had upstate New York tickets. One was at Adirondack, near Canada, where my client wanted to pay the ticket. And I'm like, and plead guilty. I said, don't do that. Never plead guilty. She's like, well, I can't go all the way back there again. That's a 5-hour drive. I said, look, I'll appear on your case. We'll plead not guilty. And I'll write a letter to the prosecutor asking if we can conference it by mail. So I did that on 2 occasions, way upstate, 2 different clients. Right away, the prosecutor sent me in the mail a stipulation to reduce the fine to nothing more than a parking violation, which has no points except like a $300 fine, which I told my client, because both these clients had a 6-point violation ticket. They were going 30 miles over the speed limit. But they reduced it by mail. That's why never plead guilty. And in New York City, the same thing. It's intimidating if you're not a lawyer, and sometimes even if you're a lawyer, to be up in court against a police officer because the police officer is wearing a uniform. You think he's part of the system, part of the judicial system. But the truth of the matter is, if you listen very carefully to the officer's testimony based on his ticket, whatever he says, and you pin him on that issue, is that the extent of your independent recollection? And the moment he says yes, that's where you cross-examine him, whether it's for a cell phone, whether for it's a stop sign, whether it's speeding that he saw with independent recollection without the use of laser, laser or radar, whatever. That's how you cross-examine the police officer.
Right. I like it. I like being able to know details on these things. That is super. I think what we ought to do in our future episodes is be able to take calls in. When we've had people here in the studio, we've taken questions in from people here. It would be nice to do calls. George, unless there's anything else you want to say on this, I think we've given people some helpful tips.
No, I think that's it for now.
All right. I want to thank George, who's so kind to help make this show possible for us. Don't forget to check out our other great programs on our channel on live1.tv, Law Made Easy. Thanks a lot, George. See you again soon.